So Axion now has been around for nearly 60 years, and we're a global nonprofit dedicated to creating a financially inclusive world. And we find and we invest and we support and help to build great companies that are bringing basic financial services to the 3 billion people who are left out of and poorly served by today's global financial system. Over our history, we've worked with about 160 companies in 50 countries that are today serving millions of clients. Now, generally speaking, I'm a pretty optimistic person, but I have to say, if you take a step back, in our lifetimes, we've seen the largest reduction in poverty in human history. And we have seen, and I like to think we've helped to lead, the largest increase in financial inclusion in human history. And I am truly worried around the pandemic that all of this enormous progress is at risk. For the first time in my life, I think we're going to see exclusion increase and poverty increase. The pandemic has been devastating, and many of our clients work and live in areas where it's impossible to maintain a social distance, where the public health infrastructure is easily overwhelmed, where ventilators and protective equipment are in short supply. So I'm very worried, and I hope it's not as bad as it seems, but I think much of our progress may be in jeopardy. Now, that said, I think there are some opportunities. I think financial inclusion is resilience. Financial inclusion is exactly the set of tools that that people need to get through this crisis. And I do think obstacles are breaking through. For example, it used to be that insurance was a difficult concept to understand and a difficult product to sell. And today, I would say there's not a person in the world who doesn't understand the concept of insurance. It used to be that many people preferred cash and were not comfortable with digital transactions. Today, I would say, who wouldn't prefer to transact over their phone if they could? You know, and many financial service providers used to say someday they would invest in digital transformation, but now there is such an urgency. People recognize that the institutions that are further down this digital transformation are the ones that are most likely to survive. These old habits are changing, and as Sasi mentioned, the pandemic in many ways can accelerate what would have taken a lot longer. Second topic. From your perspective, and then I'll chime in, why did we create this partnership? What were we trying to do?
Well, as I said, we've been interested in financial inclusion and inclusive growth for some time. Back in 2015, we set out the goal of bringing 500 million people around the world into the financial system. And as a company, we took that very seriously. We measured it just like any other KPI that we might have for the company, any other goal that we have. Every region, every country had its targets. Every employee knew that they had a role in delivering this. And in fact, we delivered it about 9 months ahead of time earlier this year. That came in the middle of COVID, and we decided it was important that in the middle of COVID, we double down on financial inclusion. So we raised the goal to $1 billion. We also said we would bring 50 million micro and small merchants into the financial system, that we would try and reach 25 million women-owned, women-run businesses. And when we look around the world and say, who are the best of class players in this whole world of financial inclusion and inclusive growth, Axion is at the very top of the list. And we have been so pleased to have this MasterCard Axion partnership for the last couple of years, under which together we have worked to help 7 microfinance and institutions around the world modernize, as you said, SubK being one of them. And I think just to go back to your previous point, look, this is a terrible crisis, a terrible health crisis, a terrible economic crisis. People who are least able to bear the brunt of it are going to end up bearing the most significant burden of it, and it is a deep humanitarian crisis that we all need to address in a very significant way. But one of the things that crises do is that they create opportunities to, as Mr. Vijay Mahajan said, to accelerate things that might already be underway. And the fact that SubK is coming out with SubK Sarti right now is just frankly a perfect timing to show just how important it is that people can get the digital tools they need to achieve that kind of resilience for savings, for loans, ultimately for insurance, for money transfer, all of the various services that it will make possible that makes dealing with the crisis that much more manageable. So we are very pleased with the Axiom partnership because it has allowed us to play a very minor role in Subk's development, and that we can, through that, hopefully also have a demonstration effect on other microfinance institutions as well.
I have to say that in the early days, in some of the beginning, especially in New York, the very dark days of the pandemic, just as the magnitude of what this was becoming clear, when many other companies might have paused or cut back or put things on hold, when MasterCard announced that it was doubling down and going from $500 million to $1 billion as a goal of people to reach out and financially include by 2025, I personally found that audacious and deeply inspiring. So thank you for that. It was great.
Michael,
So
can I say one more? Can I say one more thing about that? Because I think part of our joint journey together it's been a learning journey, and inclusion is absolutely critical. Getting people the ability to onboard into the financial system is a critical first step. But one thing we've learned over the last few years, even as we've made progress in including hundreds of millions of people, inclusion is only the first step towards greater financial security. And ultimately, individuals and micro and small business owners need the tools that they actually use to achieve that financial security. And it's things like that have been laid out here earlier around money transfer, savings, loans, insurance. That's making it not just that they're included, but they're actually using the financial system and that they're achieving that financial security. And that's where I think, again, Subk is setting a really good example of both reaching out and including people, but also creating that path towards prosperity.
absolutely. I do think that we in the past have focused more on access, and I think you're right. The focus now has to be on usage and making sure that there's value from these tools, which I'm, in the Subk context, I'm quite confident about. So this partnership started at the end of 2018, and as I recall, it was several months after you had joined, and I do remember that your joining had a lot to do with accelerating this partnership, so thank you for that. The problem we were trying to solve, and we're still trying to solve, according to the World Bank, 9 out of 10 businesses are micro and small merchants, and they represent half of the jobs globally. And they're very, very difficult for banks to lend to. And so MasterCard and Axiom came together to leverage our global networks and resources to try to reach 10 million clients, including 4 million small merchants, to help them fully participate and benefit from the digital economy. And this partnership combines digital transformation of institutions, fintech innovation, research, sharing what we learn with the industry, and something we call talent philanthropy, which I love, which leverages the brain power inside MasterCard to help some of the problems that we're seeing on the ground. Historically, mom and pop shops have had onerous manual processes that can be inefficient and outdated, and they operate largely in cash. And this, of course, can be slow and expensive and risky. And in the pandemic, it's not safe. And in many cases, it's not even possible. And these are big obstacles that get in the way of growing your business. But perhaps worst of all, if you live and work only in a cash world, you and your business remain invisible to the global financial system. If you can transact digitally, you can manage your store better, cheaper, and faster, and you can develop the history that you need to become creditworthy. So as Mike mentioned today, the MasterCard Axiom program, MAP, is working with partners in Nigeria, Indonesia, Bolivia, Ecuador, Colombia, and 2 here in India, and more in the future. We've developed a set of tools to help financial service providers to understand, map, and accelerate their digital transformation. And we're also helping institutions to develop innovative partnerships, including working with data providers to better understand thin file or no file micro businesses, to work with insurance companies to provide inventory and health protection, fintechs for customer service tools, and payment acceptance providers, including mobile wallets. The partnership has been exhilarating, and I'm pleased to say In some ways, we were worried that when the pandemic hit, it might slow us down significantly, but in some ways, it's actually accelerated and made the urgency even more important. So let me ask you, Mike, India, in the scope of MasterCard's strategy, how important is India to you?
Well, India is absolutely critical. We made the commitment over the last several years of $1 billion of investment in India. We've grown our workforce from 29 people to 3,000 people over the last 5 years. It's our second largest workforce outside our headquarters in the United States. We have an India investment fund, which allows our business there to engage with and foster fintechs. And a big focus of our work in India is precisely around this micro and small merchant sector. We know how important this is to India. It's important to every country, but in India, you have 63 million micro and small merchants employing over 100 million people, accounting for about a third of the country's GDP. It's absolutely critical. And as a result, when we came out with a commitment in February in the middle of COVID to provide $250 million of support globally for small business between our products, our services, and our financial support, we immediately announced a $33 million package, which is about 250 crore, I believe, for India. Because India, the micro and small merchant sector is so important, and India is so important to us. We've worked very closely with the Confederation of All Indian Traders, with the government there, and we very much look forward to working with partners like SubK to continue to build out our commitment to small business in India.